Well, hello, welcome to New on Netflix UK. This is episode 4. Can't believe we've made it this far. This is an unofficial podcast where we look at the new stuff that's out on Netflix each month. Rob, what are we looking at this month?
Hello, Rob. This month we are doing The Breaker-Upperers, a New Zealand comedy. We're doing Dirty John, which is based on a real crime, true crime, if you will, case. We're looking at Dating Around, a dating show, and The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which is about a young man in Malawi.
So let's start with a clip from The Breaker-Upperers.
Sheree don't wanna be with you no more. Sheree don't wanna be with you no more. Sheree don't wanna be with you no more. I'm sorry, Jeff, it's over.
What?
Hello, Breaker-Uppers. You want to be single by March? Consider it done.
So, Breaker-Uppers. This is a New Zealand romantic comedy of sorts, but very off the wall. It's the kind of thing that's quite a niche, sort of indie sort of style of production. It stars Madeline Sammy as Mel and Jackie Van Der Beek as Jen, and also has a supporting role for Jordan, who is played by James Rolliston. And Jordan is kind of this young Maori guy who tempts one of these older women into a relationship. But to explain the concept, so Breaker-Uppers is basically about two women who run a business which helps people to get rid of their significant other quickly, so they don't have to sort of do it themselves. And that's kind of the setup. And then it kind of explores what potentially goes wrong with this setup and how it impacts on these two women's lives. They're friends. They're not in a partnership, but there's kind of this will they, won't they, slight aspect to it. I must say that I passed the sort of Mark Commodian 6 laugh test really quickly with this one. It's got a lot of laugh out loud humour. It might not be to everyone's taste. So it's things like karaoke to Celine Dion, very bawdy humour, a lot about sexual proclivities and that kind of thing. But also underneath that, I think there's a lot of familiar themes of like loneliness and awkwardness of particular people, but also because these are women in their mid to late 30s, there's this kind of underlying thing of, oh, shouldn't we be with someone, but then being kind of much more independent minded and not really wanting to. And it's that kind of interesting take on sort of buddy humor that comes from a different perspective, and I really enjoyed it for all that. The second act does take a dip when things start to get real. It sort of becomes a bit more cloying and a bit more sort of sentimental to some extent. It's not that kind of film where it goes, is dripping with sentimentality. There's a lot of sort of talking past each other, so the characters who don't quite see eye to eye and not really getting on. I really liked another aspect, which is that the cheese in this film is more 90s and 80s. So a lot of their reference points are to the 90s rather than to the 80s. And that was my era. So it kind of made more sense to me. So I really enjoyed it. I've got a feeling that maybe there are people out there who wouldn't really enjoy it. But
Come on here, Rob.
Sorry. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I don't know, Rob. I think we watch different films. I mean, I've written a haiku for this one. I decided to move away from my rhyming couplets and do my poetic reviews as haikus. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, go on.
This looks promising and a half-decent premise. Oh, good. Bum jokes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, fair enough. But then sometimes you like bum jokes, Bum jokes.
I do like bum jokes. I think the problem is this, right? A lot of comedy relies on you finding the person funny, and it's kind of a pre-earned thing. So if I see Tim Vine's face, right, I laugh. Okay, that's not a disparaging thing. I love Tim Vine. If he raises an eyebrow, I laugh. Okay.
I agree.
Okay, but these people they're in this. I think they are probably quite a big deal in New Zealand. But they didn't have for me that kind of earned comedy already there. Right. And so I didn't find it hilarious when they were doing these kind of set pieces. I generally found it a bit annoying.
Okay, well, that's really interesting because I was in from the word go. I felt like it had their characterization, their sort of like the strength of their characters was really hit home quite early on in the film, and that warmed me to it. And as I say, like it gets dull, and it kind of gets dull in the middle, but then it gets, has a typical ending. I'm not saying this is any, by the way, I'm not saying this is any masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoyed it for as long as it lasted, and it was relatively short. It was only
it was short. It definitely had that in its favour. So there was one bit. Jordan's girlfriend turned up, and there was a scene there with all their friends. I found that scene very annoying, and I think probably that seemed like it had that was a kind of cultural joke within New Zealand, and that I would get that in New Zealand, but I just didn't. I'm going to read a couple of the reviews from our not listeners. So these are people, we always go for the 1 out of 10 and the 10 out of 10 scores on IMDb, because everyone likes extreme views nowadays. So the 1 out of 10 walked out at the 1 hour mark. Good concept, awful script, dreadful direction, appalling acting. I should have a gallantry award for staying in the cinema as long as I did. Might appeal to a 14-year-old.
Well, clearly I'm a 14-year-old, and you don't get any awards for walking out of the cinema. That's deplorable in my view. I think.
Is it?
Well,
even if it's on fire.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, okay. No, if it's on fire, you can go, but that's the only really situation.
Okay, do not take the main user reviews serious. They do not have the modern Kiwi humour. This is a 10 out of 10 review. I loved this movie. Anyone that is saying it is immature and not Kiwi humour has obviously hid under a rock and never come out since the early 80s. It is definitely a bullseye with how we see things and what makes New Zealanders laugh these days. Great cast, great crew behind the scenes, and so on. So it was not for me. I had to watch it in a couple of sittings, and it was not a long film.
Seriously,
I'm sorry, Rob. I'm sorry.
It's just fascinating that we're. I wouldn't have thought that a comedy would be the thing we disagree about like this. What kinds of comedies do you kind of go for, if you see what I mean? Like,
okay, if you're talking films, my favourite comedy films are probably Wayne's World.
What?
Airplane. I love Airplane. I don't really like the sort of dumb humour of, like American Pie type stuff.
No, I don't either. I don't think this fell into it. I think this was much more in the sort of indie tradition. It was much more the kind of Flight of the Conchords style of humour. So for instance, do you like that kind of thing? Do you like Flight of the Conchords? Do you like the other sort of...
Give me another one. I've not seen that. That's on my list.
Hunt for the Wilder People. Have you seen that film?
Who?
Hunt for the Wilder People.
This could be a long conversation.
Well, I'm talking about other Kiwi, like other.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I think comedy is it's just quite a personal thing, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah.
And I just think if it doesn't make you laugh, it doesn't make you laugh. I'm not saying it's a bad film. It was not my cup of tea.
But yeah, I was thinking about this and thinking about how comedy films are so much harder to review, in my view, than just any other kind of genre of film or any kind of film, because it is so subjective. If you just don't find it funny, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's not be too harsh on it. Yeah. Right. This is where Rob predicts the IMDb score to within a tenth of a fraction or whatever. This is a skill you have, Rob, and you promised me you don't check these in advance.
The thing about this is that anyone listening is just going to be really skeptical and cynical. I'm just looking at it and then just sort of going about within 0.3 or something.
Well, if you can sleep at night, Rob, having cheated,
I'm not cheating. I honestly am not cheating.
No. Okay, so Breaker Uppers, what score do you think that gets from IMDb reviewers on average?
I think it's going to be fairly low, but not too low. So let's go 6.3.
It's a good guess. 5.9.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking of lowballing it a bit more, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just to tease ahead, Rob, because that's what you're supposed to do on these things. I have written a jingle for our show, and later on, I'd like to get your thoughts on it.
Okay.
So if you can just, that's a teaser, isn't it?
I suppose so. Yeah. Yeah, that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the next thing we're going to have a look at, Rob?
Dirty John.
I believe in dreams. Dreams you can live in. If you design the space where the story will happen, nothing ugly can get in. I have 3 friends who have met their husbands online. I'm Deborah.
I'm John. Oh my God, look at you. You're inspiring. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm trying to find somebody who's a good person. He's so good to me. He gives me so much.
Mom, there's something wrong with him. Do you not see that?
So, Dirty John. It's a fascinating tale, a real life true crime happening. So this is the story of a man who basically was a manipulative and sort of deeply untrustworthy person. That's sort of putting it lightly. I mean, as the series goes through, and this is a series, I watched the whole thing. I could not stop myself from watching this. I felt like I needed to keep watching it. Although I would say from the word go that I did not start off that way. When I first watched the first episode, and maybe even into the second episode, I was annoyed by the characters, not wanting to carry on. So it's the kind of series that you need to stick with, and it really hooks you in and really gets you going as you get through it.
Just before you carry on, Rob, right? I'm going to just demonstrate that. You sent me a message, right? 9th of March, 13:18, okay? This is from Rob to me. Can't believe you watched the whole of Dirty John. I'm struggling not to puke through one episode. I replied, very, very restrained. At the acting or the plot, Rob? That's what I was saying. Rob replied, everything. Okay, so that was 1:20.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Same day, 6 p.m. on episode 7 of 8 now, but will be cut short with 1 to go as her friend's coming over. Go away, friends.
Yeah, okay, so I changed my mind. Is that against the law? Am I allowed to have an opinion that, changes?
That
okay?
was more than a change. That was a 5-hour binge, Rob, after telling me, oh, I can't believe you watched all about it done. And then...
Okay, so the reason, can I explain in my defense? The reason is because you start watching this thing, and these characters are the kind of, okay, so it's based in Southern California. It's rich people who are clueless, and it might, you remember my review of Fire, right? People who are rich and clueless, I just cannot deal with it. I cannot watch it for an extended period of time. The difference here is that it becomes interesting because of what this guy is doing, and you want to see what he does next. Which is kind of sad that that's why you're carrying on watching it, but it is. It's compelling to watch, and so I think all of the performances in this are pretty good. I was particularly impressed. So Juno Temple, who plays the sort of younger daughter of the woman who is particularly sort of manipulated and taken advantage of by this man, I thought was phenomenal. She's just so good at being this like bitchy older daughter who's just such a skeptic or even a cynic of this man. Just she won't accept anyone who her mum goes out with. And in fact, I watched a little bit of another documentary about the case of Dirty John, and he basically the person who she is portraying wouldn't even be in that documentary because she didn't want her identity. He wanted her identity protected, despite the fact her sister was in it. So there's a complex layer of intrigue going on within the whole plot. At times you think, why is this woman going along with this man? At other times, and you just get almost angry with her. But then at other times you have absolute sympathy with her that she's trying to do the best that she can after making a mistake in entertaining him at all. So it's one of those things where it's about the interplay and the relationship between people and how they ensure that they remain safe, but at the same time as trying to figure out a way out of it. Just really compelling. The thing that I think that really got me interested was to do with the way that certain characters, and particularly women, seemed to be turning a blind eye to what was in front of them, at the same time as they're sort of sacrificing. It feels like a lot of the female characters are sacrificial in their personalities. They want to sort of give up themselves and be part of a partnership. And I felt that the way that they portrayed this I don't even know what the right word for him is. It's a serial manipulator. He's just manipulated so many women in so many different places, and all the time getting away with it. And suddenly, well, in one case he didn't get away with it. But the point is that I think there's also an element to it where the kids don't want to be contaminated by the behavior of their mother, so they sort of leave her to her own devices once it becomes clear that she's not going to leave this guy. She's going to stay with him. It's all kinds of complex, but also at the same time, really, really well done and really well performed. So yeah, I was won over.
Well, let's hear a commentary view from Ladybird 269945146. This is someone on IMDb, the 1 under 10 score. Yucky. Terrible acting. Wooden, smarmy, constant shaking of heads from side to side, which is a sure sign of a lousy actor. The daughter's squeaky, whiny voices sounded like cats. This is my favourite bit, Rob. Possibly my favourite comment. I don't want you to give any spoilers. This is my favourite comment of any review I've ever read. I doubt there'll be a season 2. 10 out of 10, this person said. I don't understand negative reviews at all. I binge watched this. Was this you, Rob? No. Without knowing any backstory of this real life story. It was unpredictable, which kept me hooked. Highly addictive. Great acting and storytelling. Connie Britton was fantastic as Deb. Yes, there was disagreement with her actions. I got annoyed with her multiple times. But at the same time, I felt bad due to her strong portrayal of a broken and vulnerable woman looking for love. I think you might have written that one, Rob.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it, actually. Yeah.
Do you want to hear my poem?
Yeah, go on then.
I'll get to read it anyway. I decided I'd write a limerick for this one.
Okay.
There once was this Dirty John TV show. It had me hooked. I watched it in one go. But it's important to be clear. There'll be no spoilers here. Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 no.
You went a bit too unlimited at the end there, didn't you? No,
yeah, it was a bit.
No.
Here's a question for you, Rob. If it wasn't a true story, would you have liked it?
No, and that is actually I might have liked it, but no, I think that's definitely an element of it. Is that if you don't know it's a true story, and actually, yeah, that was one of the things you said to me because I didn't know that, so I went in completely blind about what was going on. And obviously, you told me there's been this podcast that was on New York, was it the LA Times journalist who did the podcast?
Yes, I think so.
And then there's also been a documentary. I think that came out before this, which was called Dirty John: The Dirty Truth, which was the thing that I sort of followed up on. It sort of just tells you everything that's in the program. So I would watch the program. Is the podcast worth?
So I've listened to the first episode, and it was good. I think it mainly confirmed to me that the program was very similar. They didn't seem to have messed around with it much in the TV series, so it didn't really add a lot. But it was just there was a strange curiosity in hearing the real people's voices, and the comparisons of how they described things with how you'd seen them on screen and how you had read things having seen them. So I am going to come back to it and watch the rest. Listen to the rest of it at some point because it's just a fascinating story. But I do think it's the less you know about it, the better. Really, probably it's just worth giving it a go.
The other thing, sorry, just to note, is that it does make good use of both linear and non-linear narratives. So it's got the main linear narrative that goes all the way through all the episodes, but then each episode has like a flashback to a different time or whatever. And I think that was really well put together. There's one episode, particularly towards the end, where it flashes back to a point quite near to what's just happened. That was really well done.
Yeah, because at times you could criticize it for being a bit like afternoon telly.
Yeah.
But then they do mess around with the timelines and things, which I think is a more cinematic thing to do. It's a bit more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to say, just to reiterate, I've been a Juno Temple fan for a little while. She's one of the best young actors in Hollywood. She's in a film called Kaboom, which was brilliant, and she's been in a number of other films where I've just thought you're going to be like one of the sort of A-list actors soon. I'm not. It's interesting though that she's done so many indie films that I don't think that's quite and series like this one that I don't think she's quite going to be in that territory. But she's such a good actor, I think.
I think she's in Ozark as well, which is a
Yeah.
Netflix thing. Right, Rob. Before we move on to our next review, I'm going to play you a jingle I've been working on.
Hold on a minute. Am I not going to guess the?
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
The IMDb score.
Slick. Okay, so Rob, what do you think?
I'm going to go for 7.1.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, Rob, but do you ever look at these?
No, I don't. Honestly, don't.
All right, 7.2.
It's not. But the thing we've said this before. It's the scale about which people mark things. Most people mark things either 10, between 7 and 10, don't they? So,
Apart from breaker uppers.
Well, okay. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's going to be within some kind of ballpark. Yeah.
I don't think you should play down this skill. Right. So I felt we needed some jingles. So I had a go.
Thanks for doing that. Yeah. I mean, I should do some work for the show at some point, but carry on.
Right, here you go. I don't know if this will play out right. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Here comes a good bit, Rob. Yeah. Yeah.
I tried to write a jingle for a show. I said I think I'll give it a go. I'll play around on GarageBand. This isn't sounding how I planned, oh no. Maybe I'll put in a 12 bits, and then it won't sound quite as bad. I think everyone will surely know this is not as good as Adam Buxton show.
Okay, I'll do.
Stop it, please.
What did you think, Rob? What did you think?
Well, that was a deeply disturbing episode in my life. Are you okay?
I spent like 40 minutes doing that, Rob.
Yeah, maybe, but okay, 40 minutes, well spent. Yeah, right. I'm all for it. Keep going. Do some more. Please do some more. Yeah.
Right. What we're looking at next, Rob?
Next, we've got dating around. Should we play a clip?
Yeah.
To the first blind date of my life.
All right, I'll cheers to that.
Hope you're not a serial killer.
Sarah?
Oh, hi, are you Nick?
Yes.
Hi. I'm nervous, but I've never been on a blind date before, so.
Me either. I'm like the goody girl, but I've never done a drug. And you?
Oh yeah, I love them.
Oh my God, this conversation just took a really interesting turn.
Here's the first blind dates.
Woo!
Okay, so dating around. It's another dating show. I don't really watch dating shows, so I don't know what they're like. I think 50 First Dates, not 50 First Dates. That's a film with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. What am I thinking of? First Dates. Is it just called that?
That's a thing.
That's the thing. And Anna, my wife, she says a lot. She talks about what's the other one that's on at the moment? Flirty dancing or something. Anyway, there's
no idea.
There's a load of dating shows out there. Some are better than others. I have not got anything to compare it to, so I'll just say what I think about this one. I quite enjoyed it. I think there are some annoying characters, but then that's obviously going to be inevitable when you get some people to meet up, and I think obviously the producers choose annoying characters. But the setup is basically this: it will either be, it will either be a man or a woman. I don't know why that's going to add anything to this review, but the point is there's a person and then meeting 5 other people on a first date. Presumably these first dates happen over a period of time longer than 5 days. Otherwise you get really, knackered. If it was me anyway. And then
this is what's weird about this program. It's not really weird, but the person on the date, the sort of constant person that goes on all the dates,
yeah,
they're wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, for all the dates.
For all
so
the
they,
dates.
they must wash it in between, or just.
So that, but it's 5 consecutive nights or whatever, and they,
Well, whatever
you know, and it's clearly a whole evening, because some evenings it goes quite late and they go home and stuff. So they've obviously there's quite a lot of production gone into it. It's not very natural. It's not kind of hidden camera stuff.
Not in the slightest. But in some ways, that's what I liked about it most, in the sense that you were able to kind of see that everyone was performing, and so you can kind of take that into account. Whereas I think if it is just hidden cameras, because they're not as aware of it, they maybe are just a bit more awkward. It did feel like actors, in a sense, performing. And I don't have a problem with that, because frankly, I don't care what people do on their dates. That's up to them. But it was quite engaging in the way that it was clearly that there was some more attraction between certain couples. And then you could kind of, the main part, I think, of the thing is the guesswork. And so at the end of the show, each show, they get to choose one of the dates to go on a second date with. So that's the whole setup. And in actual fact, in one instance, they don't necessarily choose. What I liked about it was that the formula was easy to pick up. I liked that you had a variety of different kinds of relationships. So you have, a man as the main date, a woman as the main date in a heterosexual, and then you have a gay and a lesbian date. And you also had a sort of older people date.
That was quite cute. I like that.
I think that was probably the episode in some ways that I enjoyed most, because it brings home to you that when you get older, you have much more to talk about. Some of the conversation for some of the younger people on the dates, without sounding like an old man, is pretty facile. They're not really talking about anything except, oh, how do you look? Oh, what do you want to do with your life? But not really. A lot of people in New York, and it's all set in New York, by the way, seems to be in real estate. It is quite dispiriting, if you ask me.
A lot of them seem to be in tech startups as well.
Yeah, that as well. I mean, I think there was a couple of moments. There was a date where it was a woman with 5 men dating her, and there's one moment where someone says something that is just completely out of order.
Yes, yeah. Where he was really, really unpleasant, wasn't he?
Yeah. And actually, it's interesting because we could be talking about 2 different things.
Oh, okay.
There's 2 instances where that happens. One is to do with cultural understanding and not someone not having cultural understanding, and another is to do with someone saying something that's just lewd and really horrible. And
yes, I know this who you're talking about. Yeah.
And I think that those moments were enough. They made it worthwhile for me enough to watch these sort of 6.
What, you liked those bits?
Yeah, I like those bits because they show the truth and the reality of where someone's coming from. And there were instances for the other people who were on dates. So, for instance, there was one of the older men, a phone goes off, and his date starts looking at her phone and texting, and he's just not okay with that at all. And so, even though these are uncomfortable and awkward moments, they're the bits that I appreciate most, more than the sort of lovey-dovey stuff, which is fine. That's kind of entertaining as well. But when you get to see the reality of how people react to different behaviours, I guess I'm coming at it more from a sociological rather than a sort of.
I think you're looking too deep. I think this is simple, digestible television. Right, there's a curiosity about this program when you look at the reviews into it. This is a 1 out of 10 review on IMDb from someone called Brettel Clark. It's all fake. No one else noticed the background extras never change. All these dates, the people sitting behind them never change. It shows them leaving with every date. The show isn't set up like a round robin. He meets them at the bar, has dinner, then walks them home. Yet the next date has the same diners in the background. So I haven't rewatched it. What they're basically saying is that as well as this sort of this fakery and the person's wearing the same clothes and so on every time, that the people in the background are the same the whole time and that they're all actors.
Yeah.
Now, I'll read you the 10 out of 10 review.
Well, hang on. I think that probably is. There's probably something to that. I mean, I personally don't have an issue with the unnaturalness of it if you just take it at face value and go, do these people actually get on? What I'd be upset about is if later on I found out that none of the people who went on their second dates, well, maybe they didn't either. But
see, I'm pretty sure that the people in it are genuine. I don't think there's any question about that. I think what they've done for the purposes of television is that they have got extras to be in the background, because then it's easier to film in this very slick way. Because I think it's made to look much more classy and smooth than you would expect from a TV dating show. And I think that is because they've got huge rigs set up and, you know, things that you couldn't really put in a normal restaurant. So they've got extras to come and sit in and eat tea 5 nights in a row.
Yeah.
And some people don't like that. Right. Whether this is real or not, and some of it feels scripted, it is edited and pieced together nicely. To me, it serves as a quick how-to of dating for the inexperienced or unseasoned. And then he says, I would like to be first in line for audition for season 2. I did audition for The Bachelor.
Well, let's put it this way. If you read out a song you've written on a date, it's not going well. That happens at one stage.
Yeah. Maybe do you want to share any terrible date stories, Rob?
What, that I've had?
Yeah.
Well, I think I went on the... Yeah, well, I could. I mean, I'm married. I mean, do you want to know? I mean, I went on some terrible dates, in my time. Mostly just immediately knowing that the person just wasn't someone I could get along with.
Oh, and you could have drag it out for the next...
Well, yeah, I mean, there was one time I think I just did last half an hour. I said, look, I just don't think this is working. So let's just knock it on the head or something.
Excited to cry. Right, I've written a haiku for this one, Rob.
Yeah, go on.
Dating in New York. Slick visuals and production. But where's the ending? My point being, right?
Yeah, what is your point?
I was watching it with Roberta.
Yeah.
We wanted to know what happened. Throughout this program, the person that is going on the date, they never speak to camera. They never say, when the screen went back, I thought this person was gorgeous, like a blind date. You don't, all you see is who they choose at the end, but you don't have a nice thing flashing up saying they're getting married in 6 weeks' time. And for me, it felt a bit flat at the end because I wanted to kind of have a bit more. Now, obviously, you can find out more nowadays quite easily. You can just Google it. And also, there is a short kind of summary program, which I think appeared a bit later on Netflix, which tells you kind of how they're all getting on and stuff. But at the time, I just thought, what, is that it? You know, I want them to say why they chose that person. Because, you know, for example...
No, but I must say, Rob, I think I disagree with you because I think I watched this with my wife as well, and we were both talking about it throughout. So even though we were watching these dates, we were talking about, who should you go out with? And part of the thrill of it is trying to decide who they're going to go for and then seeing who they go for. And I suppose the ending is the seeing who they go for.
There was one though where they clearly were getting on really well with one person. I think they kissed this person at the end of the date. Someone else at the end of the date, they didn't kiss. Yeah, they chose the person they didn't kiss, right? I would just like them to say, oh, you know, what was happening there? The explanation of it.
I can tell you that. We can, if you've got enough empathy and understanding, I know why. Oh, sorry, Rob, but I know why that was. It's because they were okay with snogging one of the persons, but weren't really interested in them, but they liked the look of them. And then the other person, I mean, I thought that was pretty obvious. I don't know.
Well, I mean, for cold sociopaths like myself, I need it spelled out.
This world, yeah.
And I just, exactly. Dirty Rob. I need it spelled out. Okay. So I want to know, Rob.
Yeah.
Your IMDb prediction for this one.
I honestly don't. I think probably people mark these kind of things fairly high. So I'm going to go. I actually don't know. 6.5.
Did you 6.5? Did you actually just guess 6.5?
Did you? I guessed it.
It is 6.5. I don't know. I feel one day you're going to confess and say.
I'm not going to confess. There's no confession. Honestly, I'm just giving it a go, and each time it seems to be coming off. I don't know how.
I think what it is, Rob, you are Mr. Average. Your opinion is
it's
aligned.
Not my opinion that I'm giving. I wouldn't give it 6.5. I'd give it like 4 because it's just like a dating.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Like I just know what the people want, Rob. That's what it is. I think that's what you're trying to get at.
What's the final thing we're looking at today?
So we're going to talk about The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind.
The rains came late this year, and now The trees have gone. Malawi is preparing for a very long, hungry season.
So, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. This is set in Malawi. It's written and directed by the well-known actor Chiwetel Ejiofor. He is probably best known as the star of 12 Years a Slave. So it's clearly a sort of passion project for him. And it takes place in 2001, just in the sort of the latter half of that year, when Malawi sort of suffered great famine, food shortage, and Chiwetel Ejiofor sort of plays the father of this family that are struggling to get a harvest. And his son, I haven't written the name down of the actor. That's terrible. He is sort of like someone who is passionate about learning. He wants to go to school. They managed to scrape enough money together to get him to go to school. But unfortunately, the money runs out, and so do their prospects. This is I would say, very compassionate and really watchable film about something that we probably don't see every day, which is hunger and one community's attempt to, just solve their problems. And this boy eventually, as I kept joking with Anna and my wife afterwards and all the way through, when is he going to start harnessing the wind? But he does eventually, figure out that he can lend very, very practical help to this community by some of the skills he's learned when at school.
Maxwell Simba is his name.
Maxwell Simba. I think he gives a really good performance. He really manages to embody this sort of persistence of intelligence and thought. So I wanted to bring in something that I'd learned recently, actually. So most people understand there's a term called sustainable development, and the UN has sustainable development goals. Hang
on a minute, Rob.
What?
Is this going to get a bit, meaty and a bit like sort of lecture?
It might get a little bit meaty.
Do I need to take notes?
No. But just bear with me. So in the 70s, there was a book written that was called Small is Beautiful by someone called E.F. Schumacher. And he was talking about the idea that it's really not easy to talk about, but the fact that the Western world has too much. And let me put it now, the global North has too much and the global South has too little. And he was talking about how you manage the development of the global South to a better standard of living. So there's better infrastructure, so there's better ways of living, and what that means for the West or the global North. And one of the terms he came up with was appropriate technology. And that was the idea that the technologies of the global North might not be translatable to the global South, that there might need to be almost indigenous ways of creating technology to bring people out of poverty. And that was one of the things that I thought was so strong about this, is it showed that process from start to finish, where you see that education doesn't quite work, but that there's a little bit of a nugget of knowledge and intelligence. You see that the politics doesn't work. So at one stage, the president comes to town and, wants them all to vote for the NUP government, which is coming up, but won't do anything will do something when the chief of that village brings to him the fact there's about to be this famine. And that doesn't end well for the chief and the president scarpers. And so it's these different levels of, at one stage, Chiwetel Ejiofor's father character sort of says, democracy is like imported cassava, it rots quickly. And so he's kind of coming from, we need to politically challenge the powers that be to help us. And what eventually happens is just this small scale solution where one person with a bit of ingenuity, a bit of wit, and a few resources, he has to go to this scrapyard to sort of build this windmill. I don't think it's spoilers to give away that he builds a windmill and that helps the community. It's probably quite a well-known story.
It's also the name of the film, isn't it?
Well, exactly. So you can't really miss that. There are also really interesting things going on with religion in this film. The film starts with the community seemingly being quite a Christian community. So the priest is sort of talking about someone who's just died in a field, who's the father of Chiwetel Ejiofor's character. And then by the end of the film, interestingly, the community, or at least their part of the community, is practicing Islam. And throughout the film, there are these I don't know the story of these figures, but these sort of costumed figures who sort of represent the folk religion of that area of Malawi, or maybe the whole of Malawi. And throughout the film, there are these references to like people saying, "Oh, we didn't, we decided we wouldn't pray for rain. We weren't like that anymore. We were going to be modern." And there's all this wrapped up of like sort of understandings, sort of quite Western understandings, as it were, about how they, this family perceives themselves. And yet by the end, even though they've sort of converted to a new religion, they look back at these sort of ancestral rites and rituals and wonder whether they're missing them almost. It's a really deep and interesting film, I think. I'm amazed in a way that Netflix made this without being disrespectful to Netflix too much. I would have thought this would be a really independent film that wouldn't actually get much of an audience, but I'm really glad that it has, because it's got lots going for it. Strongly recommend it.
I feel that my poem might sound a little bit flippant after your BBC Radio 4 lecture.
I'll tell you what, why don't you do the reviews first and then do the poem, because then there might be a bit of like,
Yeah, it might be a bit of a transition. Maybe there's a phrase for that. Right. Let me find the right one.
I'm sorry, I've thrown it off.
This one.
This is the last time I'll ever be deep on the podcast.
No, this review. Anyway, I'll just read it. Another Hollywood handout.
Oh.
Apparently,
that's rubbish because it was made in the UK.
All right, just let me read it, and then you can get upset. Apparently, with the ongoing threat of boycotts, lawsuits, and negative press, it seems that as long as you're a minority with a script about suffering, you'll get a film and positive feedback. Doesn't matter how bad it is. Hollywood is full-blown affirmative action. Just another cliche movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was planning to kind of come with a rant about that with some statistics, but I've decided rather just to let it pass.
I'll just give you one statistic, Rob. On IMDb, it has this sort of algorithm thing. It says 0 out of 6 people found this helpful.
Right.
So, no. 10 out of 10 review. The headline is Impressed Malawian. Great film. Shout out to William Kankwamba. And I'm glad the world gets to know about him and his greatness. I'm particularly moved emotionally with how well the film depicts the sufferings of the early 2000s in Malawi. I'd also say bravo for the effort made by the British and American actors to learn Chichewa, though the pronunciations are generally below par. Nevertheless, the effort to make the film truly Malawian, amazing cinematography, shows a bravery and respect for the story.
And I think it really does speak volumes that they went to Malawi and filmed it. I don't know how.
You couldn't do it in Bedfordshire, could you?
Oh no, but they don't have to go to Malawi. They could have gone to another sub-Saharan African country, or they could have gone to a place that looks like Malawi. Is what I'm saying. And
you know where it looks a lot like Malawi?
Where?
Malawi. That's why they went there, Rob.
Yeah, I know that. But okay, so they've gone to Malawi and they filmed it in Malawi. It's about Malawi. Great, good for Malawi.
Right, here's my poem. I'd like to apologise. My mother would like this. She'd say, that was nice. She'd watch it on a Sunday. She might watch it twice. It made me grateful for having a meal, and they spoke the proper language, which made it feel real. But the problem with this film, my friend, is that the title basically tells you the end. It's solidly done. There's nothing to hate, but I feel cinema has spoiled us of late. Give me a flashback. Give me more drama. Give me an end that's a little less calmer. Give me some tension. Will they do it or won't they? Like when they built a Meccano bridge with James May.
Oh dear.
I admit that's a strange reference. But my point is, right,
yeah,
I feel the crux of the film is when he harnesses the wind.
Yes.
Okay.
But is there a real problem if you know what's going to, even if it's in the title of the film, even if you know what's going to happen, it's how you get there.
There isn't, but I just wanted a bit more. If I was doing this film, right, obviously I wasn't.
Yeah.
I'd have a lot more tinkering around and unsuccessful attempts to harness the wind. And then after he's harnessed the wind, I would then show what happens next and a bit more sort of post stuff. Or I would change the order of it around. I wouldn't tell it in a linear way. and I would start it with harnessing the wind and then sort of go back and forth, that sort of thing. I just felt it was a bit safe in terms of how it was produced.
Yeah, I mean,
it could have been a bit more.
You can argue that, but frankly, I think if a story like this was non-linear, you'd think that I just think there's some stories that, for the reasons I've sort of given already, is like it's not a story that's like a light-hearted story. It's about people, it's life and death issues, isn't it? And it's not like a sort of Hollywood thing where it's like, oh, who's going to kill who sort of thing. It's more like, no, this is real. We need to actually examine this properly. And I was more interested in the way that community dealt with what was about to happen than I was with whether he was going to harness the wind, because I knew that he was going to harness the wind. And so I didn't care too much about how he harnessed the wind. I knew that he was going to do it eventually. And actually, it was more about the fact that he couldn't harness the wind because they didn't have the resources or the technology to do that until he'd produced it. And so maybe, there should have been more tinkering scenes, but I really liked the way it was cyclical and linear because it showed the process that community had to go through to get to the point where it was absolutely necessary what he did. But
I think you've argued a very strong case. That sounded very sarcastic, but it wasn't.
No, I know it wasn't. I know it was sincere. It's fine.
I find it hard to be sincere.
Oh, Robbie.
I'm gonna cry. Okay, IMDb score. Rob, your guess. What the average IMDb score is for this one?
I think I don't know. I think people will be a bit down on it.
Really? Okay.
7.
Exactly 7?
Yeah.
Okay. 7.6.
Okay.
So you were not so close with that one. You weren't far off.
I mean, it's got essentially it's got a happy ending, and so maybe that's one of the. Maybe I should do like a sort of algorithm or analysis of why certain IMDb things get high scores and why certain other IMDb.
I mean, you could. I mean.
If I had a million hours in every day.
Well, you did watch the whole of Dirty John in one go.
Yeah, but I needed to. It was research.
Didn't need to. Right. So the big news this month, which is obviously big news for us, but nobody else, is that we're now on iTunes and we're now on various other podcasting things. So potentially, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself, we might get a listener. That's the potential, as in a listener that isn't related to us.
I've had one person say that they've subscribed.
Was it someone you knew beforehand?
Yes.
Doesn't count. I think we can only really show success when someone has slagged us off quite badly.
Right, okay.
Because your friends wouldn't do that, would they? What are we going to look at next time, Rob?
Next time. So we're going to go for Love, Death and Robots, which is an animated short series produced by David Fincher, who directed Fight Club. We're going to look at the series Arrested Development, series 5, I think it is, or is it 6?
Well, I think they kind of split a series in half, did a sort of shorter. Anyway, I think it's probably, technically you would call it 6, I think.
Okay, so Arrested
or
Development
5B, perhaps.
I haven't watched any Arrested Development yet.
We'll check that.
Which I've missed out on, apparently, so I'm going to try and watch all of it, but let's see where I get to. I'm going to watch the OA Season 2. I haven't quite finished OA Season 1, so I need to do that. And then which one do you want to do? Do you want to do The Dirt, which is a Motley Crue documentary, or Unicorn Store, which is directed by Brie Larson? I haven't quite decided. I think probably Unicorn Store. What do you think?
It sounds like you have decided, Rob. There's a very brief window for me to give an opinion there, wasn't there?
Go on, just which one do you think?
I don't know anything about either of those. I'm just picking out words. You might as well say, do you want, Monkey Monster or Spanish Dance? It means nothing. Absolutely nothing.
You know who Motley Crue are, right?
Yes. Yes, okay. Yes, I do. But
let's go for Unicorn Store. Not bother.
Let's go for the Unicorn. All right. Well, as always, thank you to Eileen, who is our sound mixer. Derek, who does makeup and tanning for us. And thank you very much for listening.
Can I just thank Tina as well, who made me cups of tea?
Thanks, Tina.
Oh, and Terry, who did my hair.